Hello and welcome back to India on 99.94 Cricket Every Day. I'm Nikesh Rugani, your host as always, and my co-host Sarah Warris of Wisden. Just remember that India on 99.94 is your home for India content, and we'll be dropping into your podcast feed on YouTube and on the 99.94 app several times a week. So thank you for joining Cricket's Conversation. And Sarah, this week, or this episode rather, we're not going to discuss 3-4 topics. We're going to discuss one, and we're going to do a bit of a special today on Harmanpreet Kaur, the Maestro. And she really is that maestro, isn't she? Particularly as ODI captain, she's unbelievable. Brought up yet another century against England. Series winning captain as well in England. India winning the ODI series for the first time since 1999 on English soil as well. Harmanpreet Kaur, just brilliant, isn't she?
Yeah, and she's the captain now. This is her team, and she's just stamping her, mark in such brilliant fashion. And with Smriti Mandana, like both of them, they are the face of Indian cricket. And yeah, Harmanpreet Kaur, just brilliant. One word for her.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and as a captain as well, because look, it's not easy shoes to step into. Mithali Raj had that position for so long, not just as the captain of the ODI side, when she obviously gave up the T20 captaincy a little while back, but she carried on in ODIs, which is the premier format, I suppose, for women's cricketers. They don't play an awful lot of test matches, particularly India as well. So ODIs, that is the sort of main format, what everybody is kind of judged on in the history of women's cricket. And not only as a captain, Mithali Raj had success, but as a player, I mean, she's right up there with the very best the game has ever produced, if not the best in women's cricket of all time, holds so many records. And for Harmanpreet to step into those shoes, not only as a captain, but also as the premier batter, or one of the premier batters. We'll come to Smriti and others in a moment, but not easy shoes to fill. But she's taken it all in her stride, and she's done fabulously well as a leader, first and foremost.
Yeah. And she is that big match player. Just, go back to the Commonwealth Games, the medal ceremony. Indian team won the silver, and they all had a smile on their face. They had just lost the final. No harm, you smile after winning silver. It's a very big accomplishment for all the odds. But Harmanpreet, that image of Harmanpreet just standing there on the podium, not a smile on her face, just, she looked sad, and you could figure out that, it really affected her. And that is what a captain should be like. A loss should affect them, and it really showed that it affected her. And probably after that, she was determined to even come back stronger, because possibly, women's IPL also, the women's cricket, the future of women's cricket, so to say, is like in the next few years it's going to be developed even further. So that loss, she would could have understood the intensity of that loss even more, not only immediately, but that win could have helped further women's cricket even more. So just overall, Harmanpreet Kaur seems sad, and that's just the kind of captain you want in your team.
See, I like that from her.
Yeah.
I didn't like it from the rest of the Indian players who were celebrating winning the silver. And you're right, on its own, it's a great achievement. And in any Commonwealth Games, Olympics, World Athletics Championship, whatever it might be, all those events where you can win gold, silver, or bronze, to come on the podium is a massive achievement and should be celebrated. Of course, if Usain Bolt was to ever win a bronze, he might not be so happy because of the high standards he set. But, you kind of expect people to be happy for winning any kind of medal in most sports. And cricket is no different in a way, but that should have been reflected perhaps afterwards, after they'd gone back, reflected on the tournament, and then sort of thought about the achievement. Okay, we've won a silver. That is a great achievement for us. But on the day when, cricket is a different sport, 20 overs per side, it's a long thing. It's not like a 20-second race on the athletics track or anything like that. you've put in all that hard graft, you've just lost a game of cricket that you should have won as well. It's different to athletics, it's different to track and field, it's different to swimming. It's, I just expected a bit more,
Yeah.
not even more sadness, but just less celebrating really in that moment. I don't think that really set the best example, but you're right, Harmanpreet didn't have much emotion, and that's, I like to see that, because there's that hunger to win and to be the best. And it's kind of, I suppose, a trait that we've seen in her over the years, haven't we? She made her debut way back in 2009. And I suppose, look, those who followed Indian women's cricket and just women's cricket around the world would have been aware of this player who is being talked about as having a great deal of potential. But it wasn't really until the 2017 ODI World Cup that women's cricket became this big global phenomenon that hopefully it will become even bigger and bigger now. But it wasn't really on the global stage in the same way. And everybody just remembers her for that innings in that semi-final against that Australian side as well. 171, smashing everyone to pieces. What an innings that was. And I suppose that announced herself not on the world stage because she'd been playing for a few years already, a significant amount of time, 8 years, but just as a big game player and as somebody who is right up there on her day as the very best in the world. And really, she hasn't looked back since then. She's gone up to a different level. But people do like to remember that one innings, don't they? A lot of
Yeah.
people don't watch a lot of women's cricket. They might just see the big games, the big tournaments. And there's always a level of expectancy from her in particular after that innings, isn't there?
Yeah, and not without reason. Like, she has proven to be a big match player. She scored 5 ODI 100s, of which 3 have come against either England or Australia. Australia, obviously, one of the best all-time sides, and England right up there. One of her hundreds was in the ODI World Cup this year. She has another T20I 100, which came in the 2018 T20 World Cup against New Zealand, after the top order had been dismissed cheaply, and then she came in and just was at her very best. She had a slump. Like from 2019, 20, 21, like was not her best years, but in 2022 she's just reinvented herself. And probably it's because she realized now, she would have known that it would be Mithali's final year, or that she would be retiring soon enough. So probably, she understood that the responsibility has to come to her and she has to take on more responsibility. So, she's just that kind of player who loves responsibility, and that is why she's such a good captain also. There are some players, in a previous episode we spoke about how captaincy changes players. It probably got the best of Virat Kohli. Now it's getting the best of Harmanpreet Kaur. Both are very similar kind of players, aggressive. They don't hold back on the field. And yeah, like I won't be surprised if there are more such knocks going forward from her.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about her raising her game as a captain in just a second. But just before we do, you're listening to Cricket's Conversation here on 99.94. Whatever your team, we've got the show for you, whether it be on podcast, on YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We've got at the moment England, India, of course, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way to follow us is via social media. Just search for 9994DM. You can download the 99.94 app as well. Just Google 99.94 podcast and you will find us. We speak cricket and we'll be here several times every single week. And Harmanpreet's record then as captain, let's just have a look at that. In ODIs, let's look at just ODIs in 2022. Innings 15, 750 runs, 143 obviously the highest score, which she got the other day against England. Last 43 runs coming from just 11 deliveries as well. Her average this year in ODIs is 62.5. Strike rate as well, right up there, 90.25, 550s and 200s. And that is just outstanding, whoever you are, whether you're a legend in the game, whether you're an up-and-coming player, whatever it is, those are just outstanding figures from Harmanpreet in 2022. And then when you look at it as a captain as well, 9 innings, 581 runs, 116 average.
Hmm.
Strike rate drops a little bit to 85, but we'll allow her that. It's still very, very good in ODIs. 350s and those 200s as well, both coming as captain as well. It just goes to show that some people thrive on that responsibility of being the leader of the side, and a lot is expected of them, both as a leader and as a batter as well. And she has delivered, just like, as you said before, Virat Kohli, when he was first installed as captain and was scoring runs for fun. It seemed to elevate his game. There are those cricketers who do that. I suppose the only concern is that, like we saw with Kohli, I mean, Kohli was more consistent through his whole reign, really, as captain, but you've seen it with other captains in the past. I mean, Joe Root comes to mind as somebody who racked up the runs as captain, but then his captaincy and the team was affected in terms of a tactical standpoint and all that kind of stuff when he was the England men's captain. We've seen it with various others in the past as well, where they might have started their captaincy well in terms of being a captain, but also in terms of scoring runs, but then it kind of fizzles off. There's that, in football, we call it the new manager bounce. When a new manager comes in and everybody's buzzing, it's like that in cricket. When a new captain comes in, everybody's buzzing. Everybody wants to play for this new captain. It's exciting, it's new, it's fresh. The captain herself will raise her game with that feel-good factor around the team. But I suppose that is the honeymoon period. Can that honeymoon period last longer? And have you seen enough, I suppose, is the question. Have you seen enough from Harmanpreet Kaur to suggest that this is not just a honeymoon period, and she will go on and carry on in this vein?
I really hope so. She's 33 now. She's seen a lot of cricket. She's been around for more than 10 years now. Um, and I just hope that probably there's a sense of maturity in her game right now. And she understands her responsibilities more with no Mithali Raj in the middle order. I think she's now started to understand that, yeah, openers, Shifali is not the most consistent opener right now. Mandana is there, but then after that, the middle order is not the strongest, and so she has to take on the responsibility. I think, especially Mithali's departure has kind of brought in that sense of responsibility and maturity in her, and it's really good to see. And she's not. Yeah, she's in her 30s now, and probably she understands how her game works and what position suits her the best. At number 4, a few episodes earlier, we were talking about whether she should be the finisher or bat up the order. I think number 4 is a perfect spot for her. As captain also, she can just take on that responsibility and anchor the innings. And she is also the kind of player who needs some time to get in, and then like she scores those big runs. You said 43 in 11. She took around 64 balls to get her first 50, and then after that, it was like once she got her iron, she just went after the attack. The only like issue which I might find going forward is how she copes with the coach. Ramesh Pawar, is he the best coach? And how the BCCI overall, how what the selectors are thinking. I think that's going to be a bigger challenge, not her own game. Uh, yeah, like the external factors, the BCCI, the president, and everything, the selectors, and what kind of team she's provided with. I think that's going to be a bigger challenge for her than her own form, because I think she's at that stage where she knows what she wants, where she knows what she has to do to just be consistent.
What
And
what do you
yep.
what do you feel her strengths are then? Having said that, as a captain, and maybe weaknesses as well, things she needs to work on. Is there anything in particular to start with you think she's really good at as a captain?
Yeah, just that energy which she brings onto the field. Veda Krishnamurthy, during one of the analysis shows during the Commonwealth Games, she just spoke about the differences in captaincy between Mithali and Harmanpreet. And she spoke that Mithali Raj had a very calm, like, she was calm, and so the team overall was little calm also, which could have had a negative impact on the team. Like in pressure situations, you needed the team to be a little fired up, and maybe Mithali, she was a relatively calm person, so uh, that's sort of a why probably the team, they were also relatively calm that way. And with Harmanpreet now, she is that fired up person, and she knows how to fire up a player. That's more important, and she's leading from the front also, just not the hundreds, the big hundreds, and which just decimates the opposition. And I think that's what she's telling her players also, just go and kill the opposition, so to say. And the only
Yeah.
negative which I can find is, we spoke about this earlier also, that her controlling her emotions sometimes, that emotions she takes out on the umpires and all. You've seen her
I
from a
was there, yeah.
closer, yeah, so you'll be able to shed light on that better, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's basically her biggest strength is almost her biggest weakness as well, the
Yeah.
passion and everything. And there's a line to be drawn, isn't there? In, you can't overstep that line and start, shouting at umpires and things like that when things aren't. Ultimately, look, she did that in that first T20 against England. I was there. I saw it from close quarters. It was quite ugly. Smriti Mandana had to come in and calm things down, and she did that really well. And I think that partnership might work between the two as well,
Hmm.
because one is a lot more fired up than the other. The other is a bit more sensible, level-headed in some ways, so that they can bounce off each other, and it'd be a good partnership as captain and vice captain going forward. But yeah, I like to see that passion, and as long as it doesn't cross those lines, it's great. It reminds me of Virat Kohli. It reminds me of Saurav Ganguly. It's just completely the opposite, as you say, to what Mithali Raj was. And Mithali Raj, tactically astute, she knew the game inside out. She almost led by example in terms of, look, I'm the best batter that India's ever seen. I'm just going to show you all how it should be done, and I want you all to follow me in that vein. And she wasn't much of a talker, really. You saw that even when India were taking wickets, and there were celebrations, of course, and smiles from Mithali, but she wasn't always
Yeah.
there in the middle of those huddles, geeing her troops up, and it was always left to somebody else. And she almost felt at some points towards the end of her career, and I don't know how much this has got to do with personal relationships or anything like that. Hopefully nothing, but she was almost a little bit of an outsider at times when
Hmm.
wickets were being celebrated. And, you'd expect the captain to be at front and center of that. And that is what Harmanpreet is good at. Tactically, I think there's a little way to go. Obviously, she's learning. She's been on the international scene for a while, but as a captain, particularly in ODIs, very young, and needs to just find exactly what works for this combination of players. But look, I think they'll get there. It's a great victory to win an ODI series in England against, okay, not their strongest side. They've got a couple of key players missing, but still a very, very
Hmm.
strong side, and one of the best in the world in all formats. So well done to India's girls, and congratulations. Hopefully they can make it a clean sweep as well and go home
Yeah.
with a 3-0. That'd be a great way to end the summer for them. Just
Hmm.
before we carry on, if you love the language of cricket and you want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and our cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time, so stay tuned and be the first to hear all our announcements by following us on social media. Just search for 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation. So Mithali Raj, we talked about the comparisons there as a captain. Let's talk about the comparisons as a batter as well. Mithali was in a different league completely, but from a different time as well. So we've got to bear all those things in mind. It's never easy to compare players from different eras because things are just different, right? ODI cricket when Sachin played is different to when Virat has played his career. It's very, very different. Yeah, there was a slight overlap, but it's completely unrecognizable to the 90s, for example. And the same with the women's game as well. It's come on so much in the last few years, and Mithali was accused of not being able to necessarily keep up with the pace of the modern game in her latter years. Harmanpreet and Smriti, particularly Smriti in T20s, but even in ODIs as well, they take it to a different level completely. Are we being foolish to talk about Harmanpreet and even Smriti in the same vein as Mithali Raj yet? Because as you said, Harmanpreet's 33.
Hmm.
She's not young. Is it unfair to compare the two, or are we within our rights?
I don't think it's really unfair. We need to understand, that what Harmanpreet Smriti are doing is obviously very different to what Mithali did. Mithali played at a time when no one really cared about women's cricket. Like, no one knew when a World Cup was on, no one knew anything. And despite that, she kept playing despite BCCI. They still don't care. So you can imagine back then in early 2000s what the attitude of the BCCI would have been towards women cricketers. Despite that, to achieve what she did and go on to become the greatest, is like no one can come close to that and do what she did for so long. With Smriti and Harmanpreet, I just think it's different because now they are in the social media era. They are in that where there's more media, there's more public eye, and they are the faces of the media now. So their roles have completely changed. uh, when the new Indian jersey was unveiled, there was Harmanpreet Kaur there along with Rohit Sharma. So that the photo looked photoshopped terribly, but yeah,
Well, they're
just
not in the same
yeah,
place, are they? So
yeah.
we'll forgive them for that.
And
But it
it's
was
kind of,
Renuka Singh,
yeah,
Harmanpreet, and was it Shafali? I think
yeah.
the three
I think, yeah,
women's cricketers.
Shefali.
Yeah.
Also very weird that Harmanpreet Kaur was wearing the three-star jersey, which was obviously the men's jersey. So, yeah, even in the poster they couldn't have their own jersey. But yeah, like okay,
They've made
we'll
three major world finals though. Maybe that's what they
yeah,
started.
probably.
No,
But
no, it's not.
yeah, you but other than that we'll ignore that. But yeah, they have a different role to play now, and going forward, they are going to be the faces of Indian women's cricket. Mithali Raj wasn't really the face, if like, you know what I mean. Like, there were no posters for announcing women cricket matches or a series and all. And they are the ones who are going to attract crowds to the stadiums. Like, oh my god, I'm going to see Mandana bat, I'm going to see Harmanpreet bat. Shafali almost has that kind of that status now. She has to get more consistent. So the times are very different. But yeah, it's very exciting times for to be a women's cricket supporter now. And I just hope that the IPL, it's been announced yesterday. Ganguly said that they are looking at it to launch next year. I just hope that just takes Indian cricket to newer heights. And yeah.
Right. So what we understand then, let's talk about the women's IPL then. Nicely to move on from three of the greatest, Harmanpreet, Smriti, and of course Mithali Raj in that conversation. Mithali, look, she's going to miss out on the women's IPL, and that is sad. Julan
Hmm.
Goswami, well, she's going to retire from international cricket. Is she going to play a season of women's IPL? Maybe somebody could twist her arm and get her involved in some way in one of the teams as a sort of player slash mentor, maybe even. She can still do it as a player, by the way. She's absolutely brilliant, and she'd probably go on till well into her 40s if she wanted to. But I suppose the body tells you it's time to retire, and it's fair enough. But look, Julan and Mitali are not going to see the
Hmm.
fruits of women's IPL for years to come. And that is sad. It's taken them this long. The good news is that it looks as though it's finally going to happen. There's been a lot of pressure from the women's players themselves. I know Jamie Rodriguez has been speaking about it quite openly for quite some time. She's been giving interviews and talking about this quite openly when a lot of the women's cricketers in the past have been afraid to really speak out against the BCCI. But she's called for the women's IPL numerous times, as have others within that squad. So what we understand is that it's going to take place. This is the information that I've got, and I hope It's correct. 5th to the 23rd of March. They're going to have 6 teams, which they've already mentioned. They've talked about that for quite some time. Initially, they're sort of garnering interest from the current franchises involved in the men's IPL. So, you might see a Punjab Queens team or so, I don't know, whatever it might be. It'll be hopefully the current franchises, 6 of them will be interested to start with. I wonder what happens if all 10 are interested in having a women's team. Do they just have then 10 teams? Because and maybe have 5 overseas players if they feel the quality is not high enough from the Indian pool. That'll be interesting as well. And we understand that several high profile players from around the world, international players, have already been signed up by the BCCI to some sort of central contracts as well. Deandra Dottin's name has been mentioned as one that has signed up, and there are several others as well that we understand. So it looks as though it's happening, which is great. It's going to happen. You can't imagine the men's IPL starting that early, so there's not going to be any overlap. So it'll be before the men's tournament starts. Which, how do you feel about that? First and foremost, I mean, it's good that it's getting its own complete separate window, and we'll put everything into the women's IPL during this window. But do you think that would affect maybe the attendances and the interest around the women's IPL? Because if they were to have double headers like they do in the 100 in England, would that be better? Have the women's game in the day and the men's game in the evening, and you just sell the one ticket for the whole day, and maybe some people do then come for both matches, and there's more interest that way. Do you think that would be better?
I think having a separate one is better. The IPL is held at 7:38 p.m. because there a lot of people won't be attending the matches when it's during the daytime because of office and there are the commitments, and IPL is just that source to be there out after a long day's work. So I don't think having a women's match at 3 p.m. in the afternoon on a Tuesday or a Monday would have actually made a lot of sense. There wouldn't have been a lot of attendance that way. um yeah, so I'm not complaining about the the loan event, because it kind of just again shows that the BCCI, okay, they are interested. They just don't want to piggyback on the men's team and the men's IPL, and just make women's IPL all about the men's IPL, so to say. That's what has been happening in the last few seasons. The women's T20 challenge, just a farcical small tournament with the men's playoffs to follow, and that was always the bigger charm. The men's semi-final or the final will follow. So yeah, the women's matches always sort of lost out their their
I
charm.
suppose the
So yeah.
argument that the Big Bash and the Big Bash had done it for many years, of course, and yeah, they have sometimes had a separate window for the WBBL as well. But the initial thought process around it when it first came about was to have those double headers, and you've got to be honest about it. The men's game is the more popular product by far, and that's maybe a good way the organisers might think of getting people into the women's game and watching it if they're kind of on at the same time, or at least on the same day. But I get your argument as well, because unlike Australia,
Hmm.
unlike England with the 100, there's no that's not when the summer holidays are for India. So
Hmm.
school holidays and things, which is what is the case in Australia and is the case in England as well, which is why holding the matches in the day helps get in kids and all that kind of stuff to come and watch. So yeah, very different. I think it will work well in a separate window as well, if they do it in the same way as they do the men's
Especially,
IPL and it's all
yeah.
evening. I think that will work well.
Yeah, especially if there are IPL teams involved also. Even if we are not really, don't really know which player is playing initially. Not everyone might know the entire squad and the setup, and that's all right. But just if I know Kolkata Knight Riders women's team are playing, um I might still go and watch because it's KKR after all. I have an allegiance with the team since 2008. So yeah, even if I don't know half of the players in the side, I'll still go and watch. And that's why I'm really happy that IPL teams are they want to come on board. And yeah, personally I would want a KKR women's team also there. They have been involved in the women's CPL, and in the past also the KKR team, they've had these women academies, and women cricketers have come and attended the academies. So yeah, personally I would hope the KKR is there. Rajasthan CEO had confirmed to me that they are interested, so yeah, Rajasthan will also be there. And
Look,
yep.
everyone, I think everyone's going to be interested. I think
Mm.
all 10 franchises are going to be interested, and I think it's going to be difficult to keep it to 6. They might have to keep it to 6 just for logistical reasons or whatever it might be, or because they've already planned the window, they've planned
Yeah.
X amount of fixtures and all that. So it might have to. I think they might end up going. There might be a bidding war in the end, because you look at it now, and these IPL owners, you might think, all right, women's cricket is not as popular in India, and your average, cricket fan might not care about it as much as they do the men's team, and or women's cricket is more popular in other parts of the world by far, and it's lagging behind in India. Whatever you might think, as far as the franchise owners are concerned, they just want to buy up as many teams anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
any gender as possible, don't they? Because you look at the South Africa League, you look at the UAE League, you look at the CPL, the women's CPL, and all that. They just want to buy everything. They just want to create this brand
Hmm.
of KKR, so the Knight Riders franchise all around the world, or the Royals, or you know Mumbai. I don't quite get the Mumbai Indians thing, because it's MI, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like basically Mumbai Indians, Cape Town.
Cape Town. Yeah.
I don't know why they called themselves Indians in the first place, because it doesn't make sense to me when you're playing in an Indian league against other Indian teams. But anyway, so they just want to create that whole brand for themselves around the world. And this is another great way to do it with getting a women's team on board. So I think there will be a lot more interest than just 6 of the current 10 franchises. And that might mean that they do expand it in years to come as well, which again would be great to just have it completely in sync with however many men's teams you have. You have the same amount of women's teams. You might have a different window, but same format, and off you go. So we'll keep an eye on all that, and we'll keep an eye out for any official announcements from the BCCI. But that's what we understand at the moment.
Once, yeah, 1 second before we wrap up, I just have like I just wanted to talk about, during the match, Harmanpreet Kaur's 143, the last 2 overs of the match. Just, this is talking about the overall attitude towards women's cricket, and the IPL is announced and everything, but till you go to the root and you change this attitude, not a lot is going to change. So the women's the second ODI, when Harmanpreet was like obviously that knock, uh, Sony cut off the telecast for the last 2 overs. So no one in India who had Sony Live, the app, they could see the last 2 overs of Harmanpreet Kaur batting, and it wasn't an error which they like. So what was running on the screen instead was this this broadcast has stopped. Please stay updated for yeah. Please stay tuned in for more updates. So and it wasn't just a 1 second glitch or something. It was there non-stop till England's innings began, which was almost 40-45 minutes away. And it's just bizarre. It's like you are showing the women's match. Harmanpreet Kaur is playing an innings of a lifetime, and here no one can see the last 2 overs. And it's just, yeah, we can speak about the women's IPL, we can speak about the jerseys, and we can speak about everything. But you know, yeah, even the jersey, why are you making the women's team wear a jersey with the 3 stars? It can be ignored, but then it's these small issues which, if you notice these small issues, that shows where the bigger problem lies. It's like, yeah.
Well, look, no one. It just seems the attitude still isn't right
Yeah.
from the vast majority of people over there. I mean, from Sony's point of view, basically I don't know this for sure. I don't know the timings of the last two overs. I can't remember, but it could have been the case that the
Hmm.
overs that England were bowling went over time, and that was their slot to cut, and nobody was basically keeping an eye on the game from inside the TV
Yeah.
gallery or wherever they do the control room. Nobody was keeping an eye on it. They just put it on a timer. This is when
There
the
was no
overs are
mid
meant to
match.
end. This is when the innings are
Yeah.
meant to end. We just cut, and that's it. I mean, you can't do that in modern day cricket. I mean, the one saving grace for Indian cricket fans is that unlike Kapil Dev's 175 at Tunbridge Wells in 1983, this was recorded. There were television cameras there. You will be able to find it, I'm sure, online, given some time as well. So, that's the, I suppose, the silver lining. But they must have been gutted, people watching that,
Yeah.
and just all of a sudden it just cuts off for the last two overs. Ridiculous. And this is a big company like Sony
Yeah.
doing that. You mentioned they don't show the toss
They
for
didn't show the
games as
mid
well in women's
innings. Yeah,
cricket.
they don't mid innings. There was nothing in the mid innings
All
throughout.
they've
So
got to
yeah.
do is take the feed from Sky
Hmm.
Sports. That's all they have
Yeah.
to do. They don't have to do anything else. I remember watching the India South Africa series, and all I was getting where I was watching was a feed of Supersport in South Africa, and including all their mid innings, everything. And some of it wasn't relevant to me or to an Indian audience. Didn't matter.
Hmm.
That's all you've got to do. At least you get to see everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And
That's asking for too much. If you're not showing the match, like the last 2 overs of the match, then asking for a mid innings is like, yeah, too much. So
it saves them time showing what are they showing mid innings, like men's highlights
men's,
from
yeah,
16
it's
years ago
just
or
a
something.
men's highlights or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is fine if there's nothing else on. But even if you don't, what I'm saying is, even if they don't want to have their own studio, they don't want to pay people to host and to guest and to hold that 45 minutes in the middle and do the start and the end and all that. Just take the world feed. That's all
Yeah.
we're asking. Take the world feed. It's as simple as that. You don't have to time it out or anything. You know what the schedule is for the world. You just take that world until they're off air. You don't come off air. It's just stupid. And yeah, those attitudes need to change. But who knows? Maybe the women's IPL is the catalyst for change as far as that is concerned. Once all these idiots, and that's what a lot of them are, see how good the product is and buy into it a little bit more, because a lot of them still won't watch international women's cricket until it's shoved down their throats in the form of IPL. Maybe a lot of them won't be sold on the prospect, but we wait and see. We'll keep you posted, of course, on any developments regarding the women's IPL. But for now, thank you very much for joining us, and see you again next time.